in 64th District State Representative Julie Alexander. Hi, Julie.
Good afternoon, Bart.
In your final weeks, it's counting down 6 years of representing the 64th District. Is it coming up fast?
It is coming up fast. I keep using the similarity between raising children. You prepare to raise children and you blink and they're simply grown, right? And now I'm in the grandma phase, but I would say the 6 years of serving as a state legislator has gone just as quickly.
What are you going to do now?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that right now I am still super busy serving the people of the 64th District, and that will remain my priority to the very end. This morning alone, 3 phone calls, 3 emails, text messages, people in the district needing help and needing answers from state departments. And my team and I are there to the very last day to help individuals get answers, continue serving them, attending events, presenting tributes. And then in my legislative roles, some of the committees I serve on, preparing and educating for some final votes in December when we return. But then also, as the chair of the Agriculture Committee for the last 4 years, my first term I was vice chair. So very active in agricultural, the agricultural commodities around the state for 6 years, and creating the video series to promote and educate it as well, called Grown in Michigan. It's keeping me busy.
Yeah, last time you were here, or maybe a couple times ago, we saw one of your grown in Michigan on potatoes, potato chips in particular. And I learned something new. 80% of the potatoes grown in Michigan end up as potato chips.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, Michigan's a top grower for that. We now have created over 20 different videos, and we have about 4 more in the queue. We're hoping to get out there in the near future too. So it's easy to find entities and commodities industries to focus on, and it's definitely been a highlight.
You know what else is grown in Michigan? Cherries. Here's a look at one of the Grown in Michigan segments.
Welcome to Grown in Michigan. I'm State Representative Julie Alexander, filming in beautiful Northwest Michigan. In today's production, we're going to be visiting tart cherry producers. Did you know that Michigan ranks #1 in North America for tart cherry?
Should they slide of that swing?
Visiting with Representative.
Whoops, we have a
Happens
technical
all
issue.
the time, broadband.
Yeah.
We need to continue working on broadband around our state too, don't we? I mean, bad connections all around, but yeah, I mean, so that was a situation where we looked at where the commodities, where we rank top in the nation, and what can we do to promote that? I mean, when you go to the grocery store, how do you know it's a Michigan product and not a foreign import? And people want to know where the food is coming from, and we want to promote our local producers as well.
Yeah, and I think as the supply chain issues have impacted a lot of commodities, having things here more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my other productions was honeys. And when you look at honey production, the value of honey grown in your local community, it's going to keep you healthier. It promotes, just that syrup. I mean, it goes on and on. It's things happening right around us, and yet we need to do a better job of promoting our industries and especially those in our local communities.
So where can people see all 20 episodes of Grown in Michigan?
So you have 2 options. I do have a state Facebook page. It's State Representative Julie Alexander, and they are promoted on there. But they can also find them on my YouTube page. So my YouTube page is Julie Alexander, grown in Michigan. Over this last weekend, I received an award from the equine industry for the promotion that I have done for them, and that caused me to bring that back up and repost that on my, I think, personal page. But you know, we do so much out there, and watching some of those video series, we've reached hundreds of thousands of individuals over the years, and we're not done yet. I've got a poinsettia, I've got some ag tourism, education things out there still yet to put together. So like I said, I'm working. So back to your original question, what am I doing next? I don't know. I'll consider all options come January, but right now I have through December to work for the people of the 64th District.
Well, maybe you'll
And the
become a
state.
TV personality. Maybe you'll take that
You know,
seriously.
I got to tell you, Bart, it's hard because you're not always on. My hair color, my hair length, my weight. I mean, it varies, but I am who I am. And, you know, I think I'm very authentic in that manner. So I'm willing just to get out there and promote the industry rather than worrying about me.
All right, let's take a look at some legislation. Right now, nothing's going to happen in Lansing until after the election. Then there's a lame duck session, and there's just really no one knows how productive that may be. But that is the next opportunity to actually have some legislation and discuss the legislation. But in the meantime, you've got a couple of bills that have passed. One is just last week signed by the governor about corrections staffing. What's that?
So I have said since day one, I didn't go to Lansing with any preconceived ideas or notions on legislation I wanted to pass. It all came from the people I serve. And here in our Jackson community, we have a lot of correction officers who've been working a lot of overtime. And there's definitely a shortage, up to 700, if not more, correction officers are needed. And here in our Jackson community, that really impacts us. So what we did is we created legislation, and the governor signed it last week, that would allow retired correction officers to return back to work there's a 2-year sunset, but allow them to go back to work without it negatively impacting their retirement package. So it had been done years ago, this legislation, and someone brought it up to me. Someone called and said, would you consider introducing this? No one opposed to it. It was bipartisan. The department wasn't opposed. The unions weren't opposed. The governor obviously was willing to sign it. So it is it going to solve the entire problem? No, but it's another tool in the toolbox. It's another option for people to consider going back to work and helping their colleagues out and filling in till we can get on top of this issue with the shortage of correction officers. I mean, it's good for the correction officers, their mental well-being, their families, but also those held in our prisons for safe reasons.
Yeah, also last week, the governor vetoed a set of bills that would have limited emergency authority for the governor and state agencies in a time of emergency like the pandemic. And you issued a release after her veto slamming the governor. In fact, that was your word. That was your headline in your press release. Were you really expecting the governor to sign those bills?
Well, I was hopeful. Transparency and accountability. We throw those words and phrases out all the time. We need to be more transparent. We need to be more accountable. To me, that's all this legislation did. What happened is during the pandemic, I had a lot of people ask me, well, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled the governor cannot continue on past 28 days. She tried to. The courts ruled she couldn't. So then she found another statute using emergency powers to have that authority through the health department. Okay, that's what our laws say. But what I heard from people is, well, what other laws are out there dealing with emergency powers that might be used? So I worked with another organization, and we went through all of Michigan statutes, and we found well over 31 emergency power statutes that are in place. And we put them in just a handful of buckets. If a department uses an emergency power, do we know, number one, what triggers that emergency? Do we then know the scope of authority that can be used? And then do we know the duration? To me, what triggers it, how long it can last, and what that scope of authority is just common sense to me. So I don't see that as an overreach. Bart, 17 of the 30 bills in this package that we move forward through the House, and many were bipartisan votes, 17 of those simply said, if you as a department, could be a health department, could be agriculture, could be Department of Natural Resources, if you use those emergency powers, 17 of the bills said you simply have to notify the legislature. That's it. And most of them had 24 hours. Some had a little longer periods of time because of the complexity of it. But notifying the legislature, who's closest to we the people, to me is not an overreach. So was I surprised? I was hopeful. I was hopeful. But now what we have done is the research. I think it's important to go back and look at all of our laws, and all of our laws where they need to be, things have changed. Notification, right, is a simple piece too.
Yeah, I noticed one law you pointed out. A county health department could declare a state of emergency if there was one unsafe house in the county.
Yeah, and it said for any reason.
Any
said
reason.
you can evict a person living in a home for any reason. And all we asked is to remove the for any reason. It laid everything out. If it was an unsafe place, there's a rhyme and a reason. There's reasoning behind it. And that was the other piece of legislation. One of them mentioned that if an authority is used, you must tell us as legislators, and that means the public, why you use them. Give us the data. Tell us why. Help us to understand. So, I mean, for someone who ran 6 years ago on transparency and accountability, to me, this was just an important piece that I could go out with this legacy of championing this 30-bill package.
All right, well, maybe, I guess, it's still being, the veto bills are returned to the House, so we might see them again.
You never know.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
The 64th District State Representative in her final weeks in office, Julie Alexander.